Um, yeah, it's interesting to see how Global Gap has developed, and these additional services of monitoring sustainability through the chain and being able to collect data as well to monitor change on sustainability. So thank you for sharing that. I'm going to introduce our next speaker. When we spoke with Paula, she was very clear that Miguel Costa was someone we needed to have here for our conference, and so we're very pleased to welcome Miguel. He's a professor and researcher in the University of Lisbon in agronomy. He teaches there on viticulture as well and horticultural production systems, and he's going to share with us something of his knowledge of the industry, ornamental horticulture in Portugal. Please welcome Miguel. Thank you.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. I must first of all thank the opportunity and invitation from the organizers and from the APP-FN. For me, it's also a pleasure to be here with such an international community and focus on one of the topics that I also teach besides viticulture, that is ornamental plants. I think it's really a good opportunity also for me to interact with the industry. So I had the opportunity and I hope that this presentation will be somehow informative. We will discuss the context, some historical perspective, some basic statistics, some market organization and quality issues, and finalize with some conclusions about the ornamental horticulture in Portugal. So this is already well known, but sometimes we need to emphasize it also near the public authorities, municipalities, because ornamental horticulture is crucial to improve life quality, especially of urban and peri-urban areas and populations. Ornamental horticulture is fundamental, for example, to recovery of urban areas that were destroyed or mismanaged. This is the case of Lisbon Expo 98. I think tomorrow you will have the opportunity to visit the Parque das Nações. Also the Parques da Cidade, that is the municipality initiatives to build new parks, public parks, that brings a kind of green to the towns of nowadays. Of course, it's also important to talk about the impact of ornamental horticulture on adaptation and mitigation of climate change, especially if you are in Mediterranean Europe and the issues of heat islands. To have green areas like this is a way to cool down towns, and I think it's really important to emphasize it more and more. Other thing that we cannot forget, and I think the AIPH clearly presents it, is the link between the support that ornamental horticulture brings to, for example, leisure sports, but also tourism, because all the projects that you are organizing, they depend on plants and flowers. So this is important, why our sector is important. This is the case why the multiplicity and the diversity of the sector can help to have more pleasant towns. There we have the Parque da Cidade no Porto, 83 hectares that planted in the last 2 decades. But we have also botanical gardens in Lisbon, Tapada da Ajuda, also the private historical gardens. This is Quinta da Aveleda in the Penafiel region. But you can also have golf parks and also more private, like Fundação Serralves in Oporto. Flowers are also essential for happy and less happy moments, but you see the multiplicity of use that we can have with our flowers. And I bring again this link to tourism. This is from a study conducted by the University of Coimbra to emphasize what is the importance of historical gardens for the touristic activities. And they find out that the region of Porto as well of Lisbon concentrate major points of interest that can be useful for tourism activities. More recently, and that is enoturism plus historical gardens, we are also seeing that many companies related to the wine, they are taking also advantage of their gardens. And for example, if you don't know, but Madeira and Azores, they have also close relation with touristic activities and plants. One of the cases is the São Miguel, in São Miguel, the Park Terra Nostra. And you see the amount of, the amount of visitors, that are able to visit, 250,000 visitors only in 2021. Okay, when we talk about production, we have to know the conditions. Talking about production, talking about quality. So we have a Mediterranean type of climate. According to the classification of Köppen, we have two types. One more in the north, the CSB, that is with cooler temperatures and wet winters and rainy winters, and the CSA with higher temperatures with less precipitation. We have also an average temperature in the inside of 7 degrees in inner lands, but of 18 more near the coastlines. And the total precipitation can vary between 500, more in the south, till 3,000 here in the Jerez Mountains, for example. So you see, we have a small country, but with a quite big variation that should be concerned when we analyze the country. And of course, we talk about sunlight intensity, because this is production, this is photosynthesis. But can also be problems, as you see, I show afterwards. But you see here that there is plenty amount of light comparing our northern colleagues. Nevertheless, we cannot forget that last year we have, in the winter period, where we should have rain, we had almost of the country in a severe or quite dry, severe situation from the south, mostly in south, but also in the north. So this is getting more usual. Another thing that is also very important, especially in our conditions, is the heat waves that are becoming more intensive and more long, and we have also to account that. And you see always that the coastline is where the place are things that are more mild, okay? But nevertheless, it's just to emphasize that there is these limitations. And the prospects regarding the heat waves, for example, for the country, you see the evolution, and we'll have always a tendency to an increase of these events. And again, always the coastline and with the effect of the Atlantic Ocean is always a way to moderate these impacts. Nevertheless, these are issues related to climate change that we have to have in account, and especially if you don't have water. Because if you don't have water, you cannot cool down plants, soil. So this is important, and the precipitation is also decreasing. Okay, so we have seen the climate conditions, so you can now understand why mostly of the fruits and vegetables and also ornamentals are being done along the coastline, and also because they are near the consumer centers, like Lisbon, about 2.7 million, or in Oporto, near about 1 million, if you consider all the urban area. Okay, talking about location, we also should talk about the history. So in the beginning of the end of the 19th and beginning of 20th century, the northern regions had a marked activity related to the ornamental sector, nurseries, garden plants, expositions, publication. In fact, the Porto region benefit from many of the foreigner people related with, for example, the port wine sector. So there was a big interest in bringing new plants or propagating plants, namely camellias. So you can find many catalogs from the old times, from the beginning of the 20th century, Also this horticultural newspaper that received the prize in Brussels fair, so you see the importance and relevance, how things were done in that time. One of the icons in horticulture and as a horticulturist and it was Alfredo Moreira da Silva, that was one of the owners of one of the largest nursery that we had in Portugal. He was the ornamental gardener of the royal household. He was also breeder of rose camellia and rose and camellias, and he also edited books. So there was really a story in the north of the country related to ornamental horticulture. This is the kind of catalogs. Okay, so in the 70s and the 80s, as the country starts to open, we were also more open also to bigger projects and also foreign investments with new large-scale propagation nurseries, and also the start of developing the cut flower production, namely in Algarve and in Montijo near Lisbon. So in the 90s and 2000s, you saw Ricardo showed you the wooden structures, but we have also a progress in terms of more plastic and metal infrastructures. We also continue having investment for foreign investors with improved climate control and also some improvement with mechanization of sowing in plates for vegetables and ornamentals. That was somehow quite a progress in that time. And of course, if you are talking about the 1980s, we have to talk about the Expo 98, and you see that was about 100 hectares recovered by a green area near the Tagus River. So tomorrow you will see it, but just to see the amount of plants that were planted. And this has also shifted and changed the market, because at that time there was, for example, there was no capacities to supply major trees or mature trees. So this type of events made the sector to move in other direction, like import, export. So this was a big move in that time. And more so recently, we have some sector looking for more trendy market, biological, medicinal, aromatic plants, green roofs, edible flowers, more professional events, new large-scale players entering the market still for propagation and gardening to complement other activities. More technology being applied to plant propagation and cultivation with improved climate control, and also more certification that is already been referred here. Okay, just to say that we have to consider it open and protected cultivation. So as open field production, we distinguish the South, Alentejo and Algarve, also the center and north with Mediterranean species, and the center and north with diverse conifers, Camellia, Azalea, Azores, the Protea, Madeira with Strelitzia as cut flowers, and Leucodendron as foliage. Under protected cultivation, we are talking about production in the north and center, cut flowers, roses, plant propagation, and in south, Montijo, Odmir and Algarve, cut flowers, and also cut foliage, and also plant propagation. Okay, just to see what are the leading species, the cut flowers, the Protea, the rose, the carnation, and cut foliages, the fern, the Leucodendron, aspargus, so I'm different species. Here, a more quantitative, we were talking, my colleague from Global Gap was talking about data, and of course data is essential, and sometimes we have still problems in getting data, but nevertheless this is essential to have an idea about where the production is localized. So the Alentejo area, so here this part, is leading in terms of total, 564 hectares. We have behind the Ribatejo and West, so this area here, and also Entre Douro e Minho. So you have these three major locations of production. regarding production area of ornamentals. And you see 32% is about 30% that is under protected cultivation. Other issue and limitation that can be pointed is that the sector is fragmented, dominated by small-sized businesses. And the companies, in many cases, they produce a mix of species, varieties, to avoid seasonality and minimize risks. So this is a kind of different from what you see, namely in the Netherlands, where you have growers specialized in few varieties or even one species. So just to have this in mind. Of course, with the foreign investment, we could also find some more specialized and focused on the export market. But we cannot forget that mostly of these times there is already a market for this type of products. So there is a big advantage as comparing to the national production. I think also there is some more access by these bigger companies to logistic solutions that could also make easier the transportation from plants from here to the north. Well, unfortunately, and we have a small and fragmented, but we have also problem with that there are few OPs, organization of producers, but that's something that we have to consider in future, as we are now having possibility of multi-product producers organization. So maybe there will be a trend in that sense. Here is just to see the production value. It's about 553 million euros. So you see the plants and flowers that have been progressing since the 2010. Even with pandemic sector, although with some difficulties, but were able to sustain the production. And here this is a very rough estimation of the production value per hectare. But again, I think, contrary to other countries, I think there are still some more detailed information that would be really necessary to analyze the sector in more detail, because this is only dividing the area or the total value by the area. So, and statistics, I think they need to be improved. Well, here is just to see that although we are small, we are still the 8th largest producer in the Europe, so maybe there is the tendency also still to increase. Of course, the leaders are the Netherlands or Italy, France or Germany and Spain, but still there is a quite relevant activity in country if you consider Europe. For example, in viticulture, we are the 5th sector, so in plants we are the 8th, so we are in this range of relevance. Concerning the work, that is a major issue nowadays, as referred by my colleague from the Global Gap. So the sector employs about 5,000 people. The flower farms employ on average 5 to 6 people hectare. Women represent about 50% of the workforce. The wages are 45% of flower farms turnover, so this is the cost. Skilled labor is better paid, but it's difficult to find, and I think there is more difficulties, more and more, to find really the green fingers of the sector. I think this is not only in Portugal, also maybe in England or in the Netherlands, there are still more and more problems to find really people focused only in these horticulture activities. And we have also the competition with other sectors like tourism and distribution, so this also makes it difficult to keep people working and focused on the sector. And this is essential. This is also a social component of the activity, so we have to have more education and training in order to increase quality, productivity, and also safety, because educated and trained staff is also a way to avoid accidents in the farms. Well, just to emphasize that the cost, we were talking about the costs, and this was the statistics from 2021, that there was a major increase in labor costs in the recent times. So this is a kind of trend that we have to consider. So this is for the agriculture. and the third is, for example, for civil construction. So you see the maybe also because in some cases the wages could be low, but this is a trend and we have to take that in consideration. Okay, regarding consumption per capita, I think, well, this is an estimation. I don't have not me, and I think not also IPPFN. We really would need to have this data more precise, but this is the range of values that I'm talking about for the consumption. Of course, as a country that is not rich, and we are not rich, comparing to other countries, our value is much lower. Nevertheless, I think the trend should be positive. The market is deficitary, as you see, so this is the production, this is the consumption, and we have, of course, we need to import. You see that the imports are pushed by Christmas period, Valentine's Day and Easter, so this period, and the import peaks, of course, namely in December. Regarding the exports, you find also very interesting the trend that it is this first month of the year where the exports are the more relevant, mostly, and I believe that is to feed also the imports from other countries that want to sell during that period. So exports are large between January and May and strongly decrease afterwards. And our partners, it's important also to know our partners, so Spain as Netherlands and France, major importers, also South Africa, I think mostly related with the Portugal, and the exports, Spain, France and Netherlands as major destinations. And these are statistics from the INE from 2022. But just to find, okay, we are a very small country, small producer, but just to emphasize that one of the most important items is the live plants, including roots, cuttings, and slips, that is small cuttings. Regarding the imports, the issues related to planting material, so royalties are a determinant factor for the increasing costs of the production of cut flowers and bedding. So here is data regarding the weight of the seeds and the propagation material on the costs. And here is just data from 2022, just to, for example, you see the amount of the prices of the fertilizers and the soil correctives, energy, seeds. So seeds, there was this increase, energy 43.4, but mostly the fertilizer have really a huge increase, less of course, but still significant for the phytosanitary, the PPP products. Okay, regarding the market channels, we have also, for example, the ornamentals, the garden plants is the main destination, the cut flowers are the wholesalers, and for the cut foliage, you see that there is a focus on the exports. Other thing that emerged and increased during the pandemic period was the sales on the web. And so, is it a problem or opportunity? I put this here because this poses also major issues regarding the quality control, the plant healthy issues, and in some cases unfair competition. But maybe we should be also attentive to this type of new way of selling products. Okay, also the issue of quality and certification is important. So namely for the adoption of more sustainable agricultural practices, reduction of chemicals, reduction of fertilizers, energy and water reduction, improve internal organization to increase efficiency, and good practices for works. And I just have this information. I was not able to collect more information, unfortunately, from the global gap, but there are companies already being certified, and I know also for global gap there are companies selling turf grass that they are certified with the global gap. Okay, so a very important thing is exhibitions and the contests, because they are important to communicate with consumers, different types of consumers, and already since the 19th century that we had already different exhibitions in Porto mainly and Lisbon. And nowadays it's also relevant, namely with, for example, the different festivals with camellias, also orchidea, and also more Mediterranean plants. So this is getting more systematic and shows the interest of this type of activities. And in fact, this is important also due to activities of associations, namely the Portuguese Camellia Association, but also the activities at support of the municipalities. So this is relevant issues also for the municipalities. And here is the case of the Municipal of Montijo that supports the flower festival. And of course, exhibitions and events for professionals. Ricardo already talked. It's essential for the sector to have professionals to talk each other, to know better new techniques, but also new trends. And Luz of Flora is already for more than 35 years already doing that job. And of course there are other type of exhibitions going on showing that the sector is really can be quite relevant for different types of industries related to gardening or flowers or plants. Okay, also the issue of marketing. Already Ricardo talked about the importance of having brands that can help to defend or to promote the Portuguese products. We have the Portugal Fresh that is helping to promote our products, but I think still the flowers are less receiving less attention as comparing the fruit and veg. So maybe Portugal Fresh should also pay more attention to this sector and should be also something to look to the future. Okay, regarding research, we were talking about research. I just bring some examples what type of research has been carried, related namely with the selection of plants, of autochthonous varieties, but also very important is the pest and disease research, and also the use of plants as part of landscape architecture. So there are different fields of research. We believe that there is still missing research in parts like the economical analysis of the sector, but of course if there is not detailed data you cannot do it properly. Also the marketing organizational studies should be necessary, namely to orientate and promote management. Also issues related with more modern climate propagation and growing conditions, and sustainability and of practice, and also the research on new species and cultivars, eventually local, but also better adapted to more severe stress. And just to show some associations that are important, so Ricardo mentioned the creation of the governmental commission focused on strategies for the ornamental sector, so we hope that this gives some results in future. And different associations from landscape till producers till environmental associations that have also an important role on the use of plants and flowers. Well, some publications of the sector, I miss here some international publications, of course, I'm just focused on the national ones. But the sector is small and there are few that are specialized. The only one that is specialized is Jardins, that is for a more wide public. There are also some technical publications being published on the sector, but reduced. And more we have opportunity to go to the web and get also good information from valuable and robust resources. But this is just to show you some examples of publications. Okay, so to finalize, if we have to consider that the market is very competitive and we have very big competitors like Spain, the Netherlands, Italy and France, we have scarcer water resource and more extreme climate conditions. We have more strict crop protection legislation imposed by the Green Deal. We have increased awareness of consumers for quality and sustainable issues, but many times not willing to pay much more. We have also rising labours costs and lack of green fingers, so for gardening, for the greenhouse cultivation, and we have rising price of energy. So these are some of the things that can be promoted in the future. For example, regarding this part of the increasing productivity and quality by the improved training and to get a more stable group of professionals. Training and the education should be promoted, and I think the government and companies should also have some interaction in the way that we can have some benefits, namely in taxation regarding the education of the farmers. We have also to improve the market organization and logistics and the marketing studies, as I previously mentioned, and also more governmental attention. Of course, the sector comparing to fruits and vegetables or even wine is small, but nevertheless you see that there is interest in, and namely at the Portuguese level, but also at EU level. I read a report where they were emphasizing why there is no EAP agro focus group on ornamental horticulture. I think it could be promoted at EU level. So other thing that I believe it's important for Portuguese and for foreign investors is that we have new investments should obey to sustainability rules, promote innovation and training. I think is essential, and having always in consideration the limitations posed by the climate extremes and the change that is occurring, and of course having always in mind these issues of limitations posed by the Green Deal and the limitations that Ricardo said about not having tools to respond to it. Okay, so just to finalize and to show that this issue of plants is not from the revolution period, it's much before. So this is a flyer from Carlos de Ruda Furtado, that was World Health Officer in Lisbon in 1943, where he said, "Let there be flowers and plants in cities." So there was already this idea of defending plants and flowers in cities already before the 1974. And okay, so thank you very much for your attention.